Dajahao, hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel, and today we are continuing our read-along of ErHa. I am so excited. I'm sorry I'm 5 minutes late. I don't know why. I prep 10 minutes ahead of time and then right when I'm about to go live things go wrong. It's truly amazing how that seems to keep on happening. But we're here now, and yeah, I tried to be more prepared this time around. Didn't quite work out. But yeah, I got myself a pillow here so that hopefully I can at least support my arm a little bit better as we're reading. I have my water and I'm more or less ready. So I'm just gonna give like 5-ish minutes for anyone who maybe wants to join us who isn't here yet. Anyone who maybe is still gonna be receiving the notifications or anything like that. So yeah. But we're gonna continue our read along with chapter 2 of ErHa. We just finished chapter 1 yesterday, so if you haven't gotten that yet or haven't watched it yet, it is up on the channel under the live side of things. Glad to be here today too. Can't wait, so excited. Hi guys! Oh, and also welcome to Vivi, who is a new member on the membership side of things, not the Patreon side of things, the membership side of things. So yeah, hi. Oh goodness, I'm so excited for this chapter because I've been waiting to continue. Like, this has been the longest day ever. I can see myself getting frustrated with the fact that I'm gonna have to wait, especially when we get to the more suspenseful moments. But this already, I was just like, yes, can we just keep going? Just can we please keep going? But that unfortunately is not going to be the case. We're going to do an hour today as well, and then hopefully, if I feel I can manage it, I'm going to be doing 2 hours on Saturday and 2 hours on Sunday, so 2 hours each starting next week. And then I'll just have a 10-minute break in between the 2 hours, starting from 5 to the hour till 5 past the hour. Get some more water, stretch my legs for a few seconds, and then come back. But yeah, so that's the current thought process. But for today, we're just gonna do 1 hour and we'll see how much we get done, and hopefully then by the end of today I'll have an idea of how much I tend to be able to get done in an hour's time. But yeah, I checked yesterday after we'd finished and I realized the book is 500 pages long, which is not intimidating at all. So yay. But also I missed 2 important things. Number 1, this beautiful artwork that I need to show you guys, because also it's in color and it's just magnificent. I don't know if you guys can see it properly, but it's beautiful. And then the other thing that I missed, or that I didn't mention yesterday, was the chapter title of the first chapter. So I'm gonna try and remember to always say the chapter titles from now on. But the first chapter's chapter title was The Venerable One Dies, and then the second chapter title is going to be The Venerable One Lives, which I think is hilarious. So anyway, I think we're more or less ready. So if you guys are feeling prepared, we can almost get started. 9 viewers, damn. Okay, that's a lot. Okay. Again, disclaimer, I am not a native English speaker, so I might say words wrong and not the way that they're supposed to be pronounced. I might say some of the Chinese words wrong as well, so just correct me on those. I'm gonna try my best to pronounce them correctly, but obviously it's not always gonna work out. And yeah, I think that's more or less it. I think we can get started. Yes, the art is so pretty, and the chapter titles are hilarious into it. I mean, so far the book has been hilarious, so I appreciate the fact that the humor even extends to the chapter titles itself. So yeah, okay. There we go. My heart has stilled, and my thoughts turn to ash, yet unexpectedly the light of spring shines through the cold night. Could it be that the heavens pity the blade of grass in the secluded valley? Yet I fear that the world is unpredictable and full only of hardship. The warbling sounds of a woman's clear voice wafted to his ears, the poetic verses cascading like pearls and jade, but all the sound did was make Moran's head throb, the vein by his brow twitching madly. Immediately just starting with that. Hi. What's with all the noise? Where did this wailing banshee even come from? Servants, kick this B-word out of the mountain. Only after bellowing this did Moran realize with a start that something wasn't right. Wasn't he supposed to be dead? Hatred, cold, pain, and loneliness coalesced as a stabbing sensation. Oh, okay, I didn't misread that. Coalesced as a stabbing sensation in his chest. Moran's eyes flew open. Every memory of what had happened right before his death scattered like snow in the winds. He found himself lying on a bed. It wasn't his bed at Shizun Peak, but a bed carved with a dragon and phoenix, the wood heavily fragrant. The worn bedding was colored pink and purple and embroidered with mandarin ducks, the kind of bed only found in a brothel house. That's just great. I don't know why they hit me with all the curse words right out the gate. Moran froze. He knew where he was. This was the house of accommodation near Shizun Peak. The so-called house of accommodation just meant some brothel. Come for the fun, no strings attached. In his youth, Moran had gone through a period of debauchery during which he spent his nights at this exact establishment more often than not. But this place had been sold and converted into a wine shop long ago, when he was in his... How, after dying, had he ended up here of all places? Had he transgressed so terribly in a life and wronged too many people, so much so that the king of the underworld had punished him by making him reincarnate as a prostitute to take customers? Yeah, sure, okay. While Moran's imagination ran wild, he casually turned over in bed. Unexpectedly, he came face to face with a slumbering person. What the hell? Why was there a person next to him? A man, at that. And totally naked to boot? The man had an androgynous appearance with gentle, lovely features that was pleasing to the eye. Moran kept his expression blank, but his heart was full of turmoil. He stared at the pretty boy's slumbering face for a while before it hit him. Wasn't this the boy toy he doted on when he was young? Hadn't he been named Rongsan? Or was it Rongjie? It didn't matter whether it had been Sun or Jie. What mattered was that the prostitute had caught a sexually transmitted disease and died so many years ago that by now even his bones had rotted away. Yet here he was, delicately curled by Moran's side, neck and shoulders dotted all over with blue and purple love bites. Moran grimaced, lifted the quilt, and took a peek downward. This Rongjie, or Sun, or whatever, he just called him Rongjie for now. This Rongjie's pretty little body was covered in rope burns, and his pale, tender thighs were still delicately bound with red rope. Did I forget that that was a thing, or did they not include it in the manhwa? Because this is news to me. Yeah, I think that's a better thing, and it fits the story. I'll go with Matt from now on. If you guys can think of any other things to replace the curse words, leave them in the chat. I don't know. Moran stroked his chin. How interesting. Consider this exquisite rope art, this skilled technique, this familiar scene. Wasn't this his own hard work? handiwork? Being a cultivator, the concept of rebirth wasn't new to him, and he began to suspect that he had somehow gone back in time. To confirm his suspicions, Moran went to find a copper mirror. The mirror was worn, but in good enough condition to vaguely make out his appearance within. Moran had been 32 when he died, but the face reflected in the mirror was rather young. It was a charming face that exuded a youthful audacity, and it looked no older than 15 or 16. Damn, okay, I didn't quite catch that when I was reading the manhwa. Whoa, okay, sorry. I have no idea where I stopped in the manhwa even, so we're just gonna see how much I know. I still can't believe the first thing he sees is this. Yeah. No, it's great. It's wonderful. There was no one else in the room. Thus, after consideration, the once cruel ruler of the cultivation world, the despot of Sichuan, emperor of the mortal realm, and lord of Sichuan Peak, Taxianjun, Moran himself, how many titles do you need, expressed his honest thoughts. A curse word? The F one? I'm really gonna need a replacement for that. At this, the sleeping Rongjie was cursed awake. The pretty thing sat up languidly, thin quilt sliding off his shoulders to reveal an expanse of pale skin. He gathered his long, soft hair and, lifting his peach blossom eyes, smudged with red ink, yawned. "Oh, Mogongze, you're up early today?" Moran did not respond. Way back when, he had indeed liked Rongjie's type, delicate and androgynous. But now, the 32-year-old Taxianjun, couldn't figure out what the hell he had been thinking unattractive. That's a burn. Did you not sleep well last night? Nightmares? This venerable one died. How's that for a nightmare? I love that he's referring to himself as this venerable one, like, the ego is great. Oh, my word. Rongjie thought Moran's continued silence was the symptom of a bad mood, so he slipped off the bed and to stand before the carved window and wrapped his arms around Moran from behind. "Mogongze, pay attention to me," he said quietly. "What are you spacing out for?" Moran's face turned blue at this embrace. He wanted nothing more than to rip this... Oh my word, okay. I don't even know how to replace this. Rip this thing off himself and grant that fragile-looking face a couple dozen slaps. What? But he managed to suppress the urge. His head was still spinning with uncertainty about the whole situation. After all, if he really had been reborn, then he couldn't just beat up Rongjie out of the blue after spending the previous days being all lovey-dovey with him. No, I think best not. You could say fudge. Yeah, I suppose freaking is... Yeah, I think... Yeah. Okay, we shall see what happens next time I encounter that word. That would only make it seem like he'd lost his marbles. Definitely out of the question. Moran arranged his features to put on a pretense of forgetfulness. "What day is it?" Rongjie blinked at him, then smiled. "The 4th of May. 33rd year? That was last year. It's the 34th year now. They do say that great men tend to be forgetful. Mogongze is no exception." Oh, thank goodness this person just kind of wrote it off. The 34th year. The gears in Moran's head turned rapidly. This was the year he would turn 16, and in which he had been identified as the leader of as the leader of Shizun's long-lost nephew. Overnight, he had gone from being a pathetic bullied dog to a phoenix on a branch. Then, he had really been reborn? Or was this just a hollow dream in death? Rongzhe smiled. Mo Gongzi is so hungry, he doesn't even remember the dates. Wait here a moment, I'll go fetch some food. How do dried Yoshuan pancakes sound? The newly reborn Moran wasn't sure how to deal with all this yet, but he figured that things ought to be fine if he just followed the same approach as before. And so he thought back to his charismatic manner of those long-gone days and suppressed his disgust, playfully pinching Rongzhe's thigh. Sounds delicious, he said. Bring a bowl of congee too, and when you get back, I want you to feed me. Oh my word. Rongzhe pulled on some clothes and left, soon returning with a tray atop which was balanced a bowl of pumpkin congee. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it congee or congee? I'm not sure. 2 crispy Yoshuan pancakes and a plate of appetizers. Moran happened to be a little hungry and was just about to dig into the pastries when Rongzhe brushed his hand away. Allow me to serve, Gongzi. Rongzhe picked up a pancake and seated himself on Moran's lap. He wore nothing but a thin robe, and his smooth-skinned thighs spread wide open as he sat flushed against Moran. He even rubbed against him now and again, his intention self-evident. Oh my word. Moran gazed at Rongzhe's face for a long moment. What are you staring at me for? Rongzhe asked in a mocking displeasure, thinking he was getting horny again. Yay! Okay, the food's going to get cold. Moran was silent for another moment as he recalled the good deed Rongzhe had done him behind his back in his previous lifetime. The corners of his lips curved. I think that sounds sarcastic. I'm kind of concerned for this man now. The great Tashinjian had done plenty of gross things. There was nothing too gross for him so long as he felt like doing it. This right here would be just putting on a show, mere child's play. Moran casually leaned back against the chair and smiled. Sit. I'm already sitting. You know very well where I'm telling you to sit. Rongzhe blushed and spluttered. Why the rush, Gongzi? Why not finish eating first? Oh my word, what am I reading? Okay. Before Rongzhe could even finish his sentence, Moran pulled him forward and pressed him back down. Rongzhe's hands shook and knocked the bowl of congee onto the floor. Mo Gongzi, he managed between gasps. The bowl. Leave it. But you should eat first. Okay. Am I not gonna eat right now? Moran held his waist, the lovely visage of Rongzhe with his head flung back, reflecting in his pitch-black pupils. Ooh, that sounds quite grim. Congee. Okay. In Moran's previous lifetime, he'd liked to kiss those captivating red lips during the moments of intimacy. After all, Rongzhe was pretty and knew just the right words to say. It would have been a lie to say that Moran had never felt anything for him. But now that Moran knew what treacherous things those lips had done, he found them unbearably foul, and had absolutely no interest in kissing them. The 32-year-old Moran was different from the 15-year-old Moran in many respects. For example, the 15-year-old him had still known gentleness in love and intimacy. However, the 32-year-old him knew only violence. After Moran was done, he looked at Rongzhe, passed out from getting it handed to him, to within an inch of his life, with an undercurrent of something dark in his gaze. As he looked, his eyes curved faintly, carrying a hint of that sweet smile. He was incredibly good-looking when he smiled. His eyes bold, rich black. Rich black with. Okay, not quite sure. Let me just try the sentence again. He was incredibly good looking when he smiled. His eyes a bold, rich black with, from certain angles, a sheen of arrogant purple. Okay. Still smiling, he dragged Rongju onto the bed by his hair and casually picked up a shard of broken bowl from the ground, which he held to by Rongju's face. What the hell? Okay. He'd always avenged every grievance done to him. This time would be no different. As Moran thought about how well he had taken care of Rongju in his last lifetime, how he'd even thought about buying Rongju's freedom, and how Rongju had repaid him by scheming against him with others, his eyes couldn't help but curve more deeply into a smile, and he pressed the shard against Rongju's cheek. Guys, why am I stressed? Like, I'm pretty sure we know where this is going, and yet I'm still stressed. Oh, goodness, okay. This person's body was his livelihood. Without this face, he would have nothing. He would be forced to wander the streets like a dog, to crawl on the ground, be kicked, and suffered all kinds of spurning and abuse. Moran was so delighted by the mere thought that even the disgust he felt from handing it to him, Rongju vanished like smoke. Oh my word, okay. Just give me 2 seconds to breathe, because I don't like reading about violence. So this is gonna be a great experience. Ran in the first part of the book when I read it for the first time, and we see a glimpse of his scary side. Yeah, no, like, and I think it's worse for me reading it now because we obviously don't really know what Rongju has done. Like, we kind of have an idea, but it's different than like experiencing it. Like, if the reader experiences it, they can kind of detach a little bit more from the character, but because we've just been told and we don't really like feel it, it seems so awful that this man is now going to mutilate his face and ruin his life forever, you know, when that treachery hasn't yet been done. Oh, okay. Sorry, I just needed to take a second. Let's continue. Where was I? Okay. His smile became even more lovely. His hand pressed down ever so lightly, and a thread of blood, captivatingly scarlet, seeped forth. The unconscious Rongju seemed to feel it and made a low, pained sound. With his tears clinging to his eyelashes, it made for quite a pitiful sight. Moran's hand jerked to a stop. A dear friend had come to mind. Suddenly, he realized that he had just been about to do. It was a few dazed moments before finally, slowly, he lowered his hand. Thank goodness. Oh, okay. He had done so much evil that it had become habitual. He'd even forgotten that he was now reborn. At this moment, all those things had yet to happen. Irrevocable mistakes had not yet been committed, and that person still lived. There was no need to walk the same cruel path. He could do it over. Moran sat down, one foot propped up on the bed, and absent-mindedly toyed with a piece of broken porcelain in his hand. Noticing a greasy pancake that still sat on the table, he grabbed it, peeled off the wax paper, and tore into it with his teeth, eating until crumbs flew everywhere and his lips grew shiny with the grease. Yoshuan pancakes were a speciality in this brothel. They weren't that they weren't that good. Kind of flavorless, actually, especially compared to the delicacies Moran would taste in the future. But after this place went under, Moran would never again get to eat one. However, in this moment, even after everything that had happened in the past, here he was, once more tasting this familiar flavor. The unreal feeling of having been reborn lessened with every swallow. By the time he finished the pancake, his mind was finally clear of the stupor it had been in ever since he woke. He really had been reborn. Everything hateful in his life, everything he couldn't take back, all of it, had not yet come to pass. He had not yet killed his uncle and aunt, not yet razed 72 cities to the ground, not yet betrayed his teacher and ancestors, not yet gotten married, not yet. No one had died yet. Moran savored the taste in his mouth, licking along his teeth and feeling the thread of joy in his chest balloon rapidly into feverish excitement. He'd rebuked heaven and earth in his last life, experimenting with all three of the forbidden techniques of the mortal realm. He had mastered 2 of these 3, only the last, rebirth, had eluded him, despite his natural aptitude. Unexpectedly, that which he had failed to obtain in life had, in death, fallen effortlessly into his lap. All the distaste and revulsion, the desolation, the loneliness, all of his complicated feelings from his past life remained locked in his chest. The sight of the army marching on Shizun Peak, the 10,000 fathoms of torch fire, was fresh in his mind. To live anymore. Everyone had said that his very existence cursed all who came close to him, and that he was fated to die alone. Everyone had turned their backs on him. Towards the end, even Moran himself had felt like the walking dead, apathetic and isolated. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, no. It's interesting from, like, the very first page, which is well done. He didn't know what and where things had gone wrong. For an irredeemable, wicked person like himself to get the chance to redo everything after ending his own life. Why destroy Rongju's face over such a measly grudge from so long ago? Rongju loved money. Moran would just not pay him this time, and on top of that, he'd take some silver to teach him a lesson. As for Rongju's life, he didn't want that burden just yet. I'm letting you off easy, Rongju. Moran said this with a smile and tossed the porcelain shard out the window. He then proceeded to clear out Rongju's jewels and valuables, tucking all of them into his pouch before unhurriedly getting dressed and tidying himself up. Finally, he leisurely strolled out of the establishment. Uncle, aunt, cousin Shimeng, Shizun, and Moran's eyes softened at the thought of one last person. Sugar, I'm coming. Okay. Where are we now? Okay, wow, so the second chapter was only 10 pages. So we're on to chapter 3 now. I don't think we're gonna finish it, but we're gonna see how far we can get. This venerable one's sugar. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. Since Moran's soul had been transported back in time, perhaps his cultivation had come along for the ride? Wouldn't that be convenient, oh my soul? Moran recited an incantation and felt the spiritual energy in his body surge forth. Though abundant, it wasn't strong. That was to say, his cultivation had not carried over. Kind of happy about that. No matter, he was smart, perceptive, and blessed with an innate talent. He could just cultivate all over again. No big deal. Rebirth was already a blessed occurrence of unparalleled proportions. It stood to reason that there would be some small imperfections here and there. Yeah. As Moran thought this, he quickly arranged his gloomy, fierce expression into one more appropriate for a 15-year-old youth, and cheerfully headed back towards his sect. It was the middle of summer. Horse-drawn carriages sped past, wheels rolling, and no one paid any attention to the 15-year-old Moran. Only the occasional village woman, taking a break from tending the fields, and looking up to wipe her sweat, noticed this exceptionally handsome youth, and stared a bit. Moran returned those stares with his own, smiling as he did so, until those married women blushed bright red and looked away. This man has no limits. Do I need a water break? Probably. That's not a bad idea. Around evening, Moran arrived at Wuchang town. The town wasn't far from the Shizun peaks, whose towering peaks loomed in the distance, framed by clouds lit afire by the blood-red setting sun. Okay, let me just grab the... I knew I stopped for a reason, and then I forgot what I stopped for. Feeling a little hungry, he headed into a restaurant. As he glanced at the menu and knocked on the counter, he placed a quick order. "Shopkeeper, one bonbon chicken, a plate of spicy Fuching Fei Pian beef, tripe in chili sauce, 2 catties of wine, and a plate of sliced beef, please." Just a little bit of food. Oh my goodness. Oh, he said a quick order, not a small order, sorry. This establishment was a popular rest stop and was current activity. A storyteller was on the stage, shaking his fan and retelling the story of Shizun Peak in an animated manner. Spit flying everywhere. Moran picked a booth by a window and listened as he ate. As I'm sure everyone already knows, the cultivation world is divided into the upper and lower cultivation realms. Today, we'll talk about the greatest sects in the lower cultivation realm, Shizun Peak. Did you know that 100 years ago, our Wuchang town was a poor and desolate place due to its proximity to the entrance of the ghost realm? No one dared go out after dark. If they really needed to travel at night, they had to ring an exorcism bell and sprinkle incense ash and paper money while chanting, "People barred by mountain..." What? "People barred by mountains, demons barred by paper," and pass across as quickly as they could. But these days, our town thrives and flourishes, no different from anywhere else, and it's all thanks to Shizun Peak's care. This righteous sect stands right at the gate to the ghost realm, between the boundaries of yin and yang. Even though the sect was established not that long ago, Moran had heard this history so many times that his ears had damn near grown calloused. I like that description. Oh my word. And so he started glancing around outside the window instead. It just so happened that at that moment a stall had been set up below the window. There, several strangers from out of town were dressed in cultivation garb and carrying a cage covered with a black cloth as they performed street-side tricks. This was much more interesting than the storyteller's tale, and Moran's attention was drawn to it. "Come on, come all. Take one look at these picture cubes, fierce, mythical beasts we tame to obediently perform tricks, and even do math." Okay. It's not easy traveling to perform chivalrous deeds. Everyone spare some tips and stick around. Come watch the first trick. Picture abacus? Okay. With a flourish, the cultivator ripped away the black cloth to reveal a couple of human-faced, bare-bodied monsters in the cage. That sounds grim? Moran was speechless. just a couple of meek, fuzzy bear cubs, and you actually dare to claim that they're MECHUU? That was quite a lot of crap right there. Only donkey brains would believe it. But Moran's worldview was soon widened as some 20 or 30 donkey-brained people gathered to watch, cheering and clapping. They drew the attention of everyone in the restaurant as well, making things quite awkward for the storyteller. Oh my word, can you imagine? Number one, obviously Moran seems very offended that everyone is falling for it, but also the fact that the storyteller is like, you're messing up my business. Sorry, I just quickly, another... Okay, I have to say, a lot of these words feel very strange to me, so I'm struggling a little bit right now, so I'm sorry about that. Also, you just have to appreciate how they try to work in the exposition via storytellers every single time. Why is everyone crying in the comments? I'm worried. The current leader of Shizun Peak is a man known far and wide for his strength and brilliance. Nice, again! Encouraged, the storyteller glanced towards the owner of the voice, only to find a customer whose face glowed red with excitement, but whose gaze was locked not on himself but on the street performance. Oh? The MECHUU is doing math on an abacus? Wow, quite impressive. Good show. Make the MECHUU juggle apples again. At the window to watch the scene below. The storyteller pathetically tried to carry on. The master is best known for that fan of his. He... Ah ha 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 ha. No, Mom, what was that? Sorry. I can't do fake laughs. That light-colored MECHUU wants to eat the apple. Look at it rolling around on the ground. The storyteller wiped his face with a towel, his lips quivering with anger. Moran pursed his lips in a smile and leisurely called out from behind the beaded curtain. Forget Shizun Peak. Tell the story of 8 caresses instead. I guarantee it'll pull back everyone's attention. The storyteller didn't know that the person behind the curtain was one of the young masters of Shizun Peak himself, Moran. He gathered all the moral integrity he had to stutter out, vulgar stories are not fit for the elegant hall. Moran laughed. You're calling this place an elegant hall? How are you not embarrassed? A burst of noise came from below. Ah, what a fast horse! Must be a cultivator from Shizun Peak. In the midst of the chatter, a black horse galloped from the direction of Shizun Peak, and, in a flash, charged into the street-side circus. There were 2 people on the horse. One wore a black bamboo hat and was shrouded in a black cloak that covered them so completely it was impossible to tell their age or gender. The other was a 30 or 40-year-old woman with rough hands and withered face. The woman started crying as soon as she saw the man bears. She scrambled off the horse and stumbled towards them, kneeling to embrace one of them in her arms as she wailed, "My son! Oh, my son!" The audience was stumped. Huh? Aren't these MECHUU cubs? Someone muttered while scratching his head. Why is this woman calling it her son? You managed to forget about this somehow? Yeah, this part always makes me angry. Oh goodness, I'm starting to get a suspicion, but I'm hoping that I'm wrong. Maybe it's a MECHUU mother? Ayo, that'd be quite something then, if the female can even take on human form. These villagers had no relevant knowledge or experience and were only babbling nonsense, but Moran instantly figured out what was going on. Rumor had it that some rogue cultivators liked to abduct children, rip their tongues out so they couldn't talk, burn their skin off with boiling water, and then stick animal hide on their bloody bodies so that only the body had what? So that once the blood had congealed, child and fur would become one, making them look like monsters. Okay, sorry. Wow, okay. These children couldn't speak or write and had no choice but to suffer abuse and obediently perform tricks like MECHUU abacus. Any resistance only earned them a beating. No wonder he hadn't sensed any demonic energy. These MECHUU weren't monsters at all, but actual living humans. While Moran was thinking to himself, the person in the black cloak said something in low tones to the cultivators, who flew into a rage. Apologize. That ain't in my vocabulary. So what if you're from Shizun Peak? Oh, okay, Vivi, if I could ask you to maybe put a timestamp for when the scene is done, so that, you know, everyone who wants, and then just drop back in once we're finished with the scene. Oh goodness, yeah, because this is not great. Mind your own damn business. Beat him up. They pounced on the black-cloaked person for a trashing. Ayo, as Moran watched his fellow disciple get beat up, he only let out a low chuckle. How scary. He had zero intention of helping out. Even in his previous life, he'd always loathed the righteous and meddlesome way of his sect. The lot of them rushed to throw themselves at any trouble that cropped up like so many idiots. They would even bother with some minor inconvenience like Miss Wang's cat getting stuck in a tree. Every single last member of the entire sect, from leader all the way down to the servants, was a dimwit. There were countless injustices in the world, so what was the point of caring? It was enough to exhaust a person to death. They're fighting! Oh, what a punch! Within and without the restaurant, everyone gathered to spectate. So many of you ganging up on one person. Aren't you ashamed? Watch out behind you, sir. Close call. What? Nice dodge. These people loved a good fight, but Moran didn't care to watch. He'd seen plenty of bloodshed. To him, the events currently unfolding was like unto a fly buzzing. He lazily dusted peanut crumbs off his clothes and got up to leave. Downstairs, the cultivators and the black-cloaked person had reached a stalemate, sword swishing. Crossing his arms, Moran leaned against the restaurant's door. All it took was one glance to make him click his tongue in annoyance. What a disgrace. Everyone from Shizun Peak was a fierce fighter, each the equal of 10 men. But the black-cloaked person was a pathetic combatant. Even when they were dragged off the horse, surrounded and kicked, they held back. Instead, this person cried out politely, "Honorable men, speak with their mouths, not with their fists. I'm trying to reason with you. Why won't you listen?" Why do I get the feeling that this man that Moran is deeming to be very weak is the person who he claimed to love, like Sugar? The cultivators were as speechless as Moran. The cultivators were thinking, the hell? This person's already been so soundly whipped and they're still preaching that nonsense? Is this what they call mantu for brains all empty inside? But Moran's face changed abruptly as, for a second, his head spun. He held his breath, eyes wide with disbelief. That voice. SHIMEI! Moran shouted and rushed forward, agitated. He let loose an attack filled with spiritual power that instantly knocked away 5 of the ZHANG cultivator's swindlers and knelt on the ground to help up the black-cloaked figure, who was covered in muddy boot marks. His voice couldn't help but tremble slightly as he said, "Shimei, is that you?" Okay, on to chapter 4. These chapters are a lot shorter than I was expecting. We have 10 minutes left. So let me just breathe for a second because that was rough. I'm not sure yet if the scene is technically past, like how much more we're going to be dealing with in terms of the poor children. Apparently a picture is a winged lion. Okay. Oh, that's fair. Yeah, it does kind of put it into perspective. Okay. Hi. Okay, I'm gonna do as much as we can do in 10 minutes, and then we're gonna call it a day. But I'm surprised that we're already on chapter 4. The Venerable One's cousin. This Shimei was not the kind of Shimei. Shimei was in fact male, and moreover, considering when he joined the sect, he was technically Moran's Shishong. Sorry. The reason he had such an unfortunate name was the leader of Shishing Peak's lack of erudition. I don't know that word. Shimei was an orphan, and the sect leader had found him in the wild. The boy had been weak and a sickly child, and so the sect leader had thought to give him a humble name, as humble names bring an easier life. The child had been astonishingly pretty, like a darling little girl, lovable and charming. After much thought, the leader had eventually come up with the name Shuya, a simple given name that just meant little girl. Why would you do that? As Shuya grew older and older, so too had he grown more and more beautiful. He possessed a slim figure, and the tips of his brows and the corners of his eyes were well shaped, lending him a graceful mien. The overall effect was that of a striking and peerless natural beauty. The crude and uncultured farmers of the village wouldn't think it wrong to use a name like Shuya, but had everyone else heard of a legendary beauty whose name was Harmony? For dog balls, they really just want to throw me in there, don't they? Or a steel cock. Wow. This is great. Thank you. Thank you, book. I really appreciate it. The boy's fellow sect disciples hadn't thought it appropriate and gradually stopped calling him Shia. But since it had been a name bestowed by the sect leader, they hadn't dared presume to change it, and so they'd half-jokingly started calling him Shimei instead. It was Shimei this, Shimei that, until at last the sect leader shook out his long sleeves and kindly suggested, "Shia, why don't you change your name to Shimei once and for all? What do you think of using the characters Mei from the word Meng-Mei?" He'd actually had the gall to ask. What normal person wouldn't abhor such a name? Nevertheless, Shimei was a sweet-tempered by nature, and when he saw the sect leader watching him with excited cheerfulness, clearly thinking that he'd done him an amazing service, Shimei didn't have the heart to decline. Even if he felt aggrieved, he couldn't embarrass the sect leader, so he knelt and accepted the name with grace. This poor person. From that day on, his name became Shimei. The figure in the black cloak coughed a few times before finally catching his breath. His gaze fell on Moran. Aran, what are you doing here? Behind a thin layer of organza, a pair of eyes, gentle as spring water and bright as the night stars, pierced the depth of Moran's heart. With this one look, a seal on Tashinjian's long-buried boyhood feelings and tender affections was broken. This was SHIMEI. There could be no mistake. Moran was a scoundrel. In his past life, he'd played around with many men and women. That he hadn't died from too much messing around had come as a surprise even to him. But the only person he'd ever given his heart to was one he'd never dared to touch. He and SHIMEI had been close, and there had been a faint hint of romance in their relationship. However, up until SHIMEI's death, Moran had only ever held his hand, and the one time their lips had brushed in a brief kiss, it had been an accident. That's quite sad. Oh goodness. Which version are you guys reading? We're reading the official version, translated, published by 7 Seas Entertainment. Yeah, okay, so just a heads. Substituted language is all me. This is not 7 Seas trying to, like, censor anything. But, oh, what I wanted to ask you guys is there are footnotes. Would you guys like me to mention the footnotes as they come up, or should I just kind of skim over and leave them? Moran felt that he was dirty and sullied, while SHIMEI was pure and sweet. In other words, Moran wasn't fit to be with him. In life, Moran had treasured and cherished SHIMEI, and he had done so all the more after SHIMEI's death. In death, SHIMEI had become Tashinjian's unattainable, had tried to cling to his memories of SHIMEI. The deceased belonged to the past, returned irretrievably to the earth with no trace left behind. But in this moment, SHIMEI stood in front of him, once more living and breathing. It was only with great effort and all of Moran's willpower that he held back his emotions and restrained himself. Moran helped SHIMEI up and patted away the dust on his cloak, heart aching with an almost physical pain. If I hadn't been here, they would have bullied you even more. Why didn't you hit back? I wanted to try reasoning with them first. You can't reason with these people. Are you injured? Where does it hurt? Turned to the cultivator's expression ferocious. You dare lay a hand on someone from Shizun Peak like you cared? You only care because it's sugar. Some nerve you've got there. Alright, guys want to fight? Come on then. If cultivators had it. But that one blow had made them sufficiently aware that his cultivation skills were far beyond theirs. They only knew how to pick on. Oh my word. Which means we read 22 pages today, which is a bit slower than yesterday, unfortunately. So sorry about that. But I think if we... Was it really only 22 pages? Yeah, okay. I mean, sometimes they contain spoilers. Okay, then we're definitely not reading them. Because I thought maybe that would give some people a bit more context in terms of, like, the differences in names and things like that. But if it contains, I'm gonna risk it. What the hell is going on? YouTube seems to be acting up. Is it an issue? Like, are you guys experiencing issues on your side? Because on my side, it's saying a lot of weird things. Okay. And so we'll be getting through about 40 in 2 hours' time. But yeah, so that's currently the plan. We shall see how it goes on Saturday. And yeah, I might end up moving the streams to like Friday. We'll have to see how. And oh, one small thing that I wanted to mention, I don't know if it really mattered. I did one. I'm gonna be putting that as the standard thumbnail, and then after each live I'll put a different heading and also the thumbnail to something taken from the manhwa relating to the chapter that we read, or like the things that we read, so that it's easier to distinguish which live, like why someone wants to rewatch it or watch it for the first time after. So yeah, okay, you can quickly drop them below, but otherwise I think we're done for the day. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you for all the interaction. It's really you guys as we go along. Okay, a little choppy. It's weird. I think I might move to start now, so 2 hours from right now.